Hello, Pat.
How are you,
How's it
Haley?
going?
It's going well. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me
Yeah.
on the Instagram today.
Oh, of course. I'm so happy to have you here. Before we get started and dive into our topic, which is building an audience in 2022, which I'm really excited about, I always give people the opportunity to do a quick intro, background about who you are. So for anyone who may not know you, love to hear some just about yourself.
For sure. Hey, buddy. My name is Pat Flynn. Many people know me from the podcasting world, right? So I have a podcast called Smart Passive Income, as well as a website of the same name. I have another podcast called Ask Pat. I have a YouTube channel with Pat Flynn as the sort of channel name. And I help entrepreneurs. I help business owners. And one of the ways that I do that is through online courses. I had built my first online course in 2017. And since then, on the Teachable platform, we've generated over $4.4 million worth of sales of our
Wow.
courses. So really amazing. Couldn't do it without you. So thank you. And thank you to Teachable and everybody there. And I'm excited because I'm also an advisor to Teachable as well. So I very much care about anybody who's looking to take all the information in their brain, distill it, and pass it on to somebody else, because in that way, everybody wins. You can get paid for that, and somebody can get a transformation that they've been looking for. And so I have some books, and I've spoken on stages before. Like I'm not going to waste time talking about myself. I'm here to help everybody grow audiences for the end of this year and for into next.
Yes, amazing. And before we dive into it, there is going to be an exciting announcement at the end that we're going to talk about. And before also we get into it, if you have any questions related to this topic for Pat, definitely make sure to leave them in the comments, or you can tap that little question icon at the bottom right of your screen, and then we can address those later on. Okay, so building an audience.
Yes.
There's so much that goes into it. So I think it would be best for us to start at the basics and kind of like the foundation of what's the first thing that someone should do if they're starting from square one.
Yeah, if you're starting from square one, also hello to everybody in the chat. I see some familiar names. Joanna, good to see you here, and everybody else. Just thank you. I think when it comes to the basics of building an audience, we don't just want to start creating content, right? We don't want to just jump right into it, although that's what many people will say, and it is important to do that. I think one step that needs to happen before that is to first understand who is it that you're trying to serve first. The more that you can tune into who it is that you're serving, what are their pains, what are their problems, needs, wants, desires, challenges, when you can nail what those things are and you understand the language that they're using to describe those problems, it's going to make your life so much easier, right? This is how you start to have people understand, oh, like, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm going through. Finally, somebody gets it. That comes from just understanding. And here's the big word, two words, immersive empathy. This is what I'm trying to share more about, is to not just like kind of feel what it's like to have a person, you know, to go into somebody else's shoes and understand what they're going through, but really immerse yourself in that space, almost become one of them in a way. If you don't fully understand that, then it's going to be much more difficult for you. And when it comes to audience building, it comes from an understanding of who is the audience that you're targeting first. So that's like the most important thing in the world.
Yes, and I think that that's kind of a piece of advice that I've heard many times, is really learning before anything else of who your ideal audience is going to look like and how do you want to serve them in the best way possible.
Right, because when you understand what they're going through, then you can create content. That would be perhaps the next step if you want to build an audience. And of course, content can come in many different forms and in many different fashions. It could be repurposed in multiple ways. And we'll talk about some of those platforms, I'm sure, in just a moment. But when the content is coming from the audience and it has an audience-driven approach, here's what you're actually doing. You're removing the guesswork. And one of the hardest and toughest things to do as an entrepreneur is feel like the thing that you're creating might not even be worth creating.
Right.
And that's a very difficult way to create. It's a very difficult mindset to have when creating. And so when you take the opposite approach, which is when you're creating, you're like, I know exactly that this is the thing my audience needs right now. Not only is it just going to be more useful in general, but the way you talk about it and how you promote it, because, you know, audience building is, you know, not just creating content, it's promoting that content as well. How you talk about what it is that you're creating, just like how you should all be talking about your courses in a way that you know this is helpful for people. It's just, again, going to have the right clarity and the right kind of mindset into the approach of, okay, writing content, creating courses, all these other things that, you know, we always just tend to jump right into.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of want to go back to empathy. I think that I actually just saw an article on LinkedIn the other day talking about how empathy is one of the most important leadership skills that you could have. But of course, it's also really important with marketing efforts. So, you know, for people who kind of aren't familiar with why that could be a thing, why do you think empathy is so important when you are building your audience?
Yeah, it's one thing to have a target audience. It's another thing to feel what that audience is feeling. I know a guy, he's a friend of mine, who was so concerned about this empathy, knowing that the more empathetic he was with his audience, the more he understood really what they were going through, like the day-to-day type of stuff that they were going through and what they were thinking, the better he would be able to serve them. And of course, he cared a lot about this audience. He was in the financial space. He wanted to help people get out of debt. But the trouble was he himself was not in debt. So here's what he did. He put himself in debt purposefully. Now, I'm not saying go put yourself in debt purposefully. Oh my goodness, yeah. But what he did was he let a lot of his bills just cycle through without paying them. Like, this is a very dangerous thing to do because obviously it affects like your credit score and stuff like that. But when he started receiving notices in the mail and phone calls from collectors and the tone of the voices that they were using to try and get him to finally pay for things that, you know, should have been paid for earlier, he could then truly understand what a person who he was trying to help was going through. And he can say in his marketing and his messaging and conversations like, hey, those calls that you're getting, I've gotten those too. Here's what they're saying. I know what they're saying. And a person can now go, yes, finally, you get it. Like, you're just
someone understands me. Yeah,
exactly. So that's why that's important, because then when you're creating content, you're not just creating content for that person. You're in a way creating it in a way that allows you to know that this is going to help you too. I'm not, again, saying you have to go that far, but just to immerse yourself in that space so much that you understand it completely is really the key idea there.
Definitely. I think that's kind of helpful for maybe a new creator, business owner who doesn't really know what they want to either teach or develop a product around. You can kind of get really siloed into things that you've experienced in the past that could then be translated into like an online course or something like that.
Right. Exactly. And it's going to take some experimentation. This is why I love content. Before you even create your course, creating content about things does a couple things. Number one, it lets you understand that maybe there's more that you need to research before you actually build something much bigger. And it also helps you connect with people. You could see and test, okay, I'm going to write, 5 articles about starting a YouTube channel from start to finish. And then you might be able to see which one of those articles gets picked up and why. And then you can go to the people who commented, or maybe even if it's just social posts, you're going to create a nice Instagram story about something and then ask a question at the end to have people engage on the platform like we're on right now. And then you can follow up with them and go, okay, hey, you asked a really great question. Can I ask you, like, what's your biggest struggle? Why haven't you started your YouTube channel yet? And then you can actually start to connect with people. And this is the cool thing, because when you lead to eventually a product or a service of some kind, or a course, for example, you now have real people who you've already actually connected with that you could go, hey, like, here's the outline of my course. Is this something that you think would make sense for you? Or do you think something's missing here? Like, you have real people now. And I'm not saying that guarantees success. I'm not saying that now that you've talked to people, when you create this course, you're going to make millions of dollars. But it means that even if you were to fail, even if like the course didn't sell, you could go back to those people and say, hey, well, where were we off here? You told me you needed this. I had built this, but you didn't purchase. Why not? And now you can get to the root of this thing, versus what most people do is they spend time building the thing and then they'll announce it and then nobody will buy it. And then they go, well, I guess I'm not good enough, or I don't have anybody to talk to about this. And they're kind of screwed, right? So this approach that I talk about in my book, Will It Fly, which I saw some of you reference in the chat here, thank you, by the way, allows you to take an iterative approach with green lights to move on to the next spot. And if you hit a red light, that's the area where you focus, and it's not all done, right? You can go back to not square one, but square previous green light, I guess. So yeah, that empathy is key, and that content creation can help you experiment. And then once you see something pick up, once you see, very much like the way you approach TikTok and Instagram Reels, when you create a video that seems to take off, like, create more of that, like do it again, right? There was a DJ who started creating these really cool videos on TikTok, who like would match 2 songs together that you wouldn't think would be perfect for each other, and then they are. I think I know what you're talking about. The guy's so legit. It's so good, especially when it's like nostalgic 90s songs for me. But like, that wasn't his thing to begin with. He just kept creating all kinds of different content, and that was the one that TikTok decided to take off with. And then he's like on now version 42 of that same thing because
Amazing.
he's gotten validation, but it
Yeah.
took him putting that out there and trying.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of want to segue into talking about content in general.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really great to start off with social media content. I find that I have noticed a lot of creators feeling overwhelmed by wondering what platforms they should even show up on to begin with. So what advice do you have around that, of kind of getting clear on which social media platforms you should be on, and then kind of taking that approach to starting to create content for it?
That's a fantastic question, Haley, because there's so many to choose from. How do we know where to go? And
Right.
I think the last thing we want to do is to be everywhere. And this might sound counterproductive to some of the stuff that I used to teach, because I used to teach this strategy called How to Be Everywhere. But the truth is, you can seem like you're everywhere, but if you actually are trying to be on every social platform all at once, well, you're only going to be 25% here and 25% there and 25% there. None of your full energy is going to be anywhere. And so why would a person follow you on a platform if you are not fully showing up on that platform?
Right.
Right? Like that's just, you won't.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not getting all of them here, so why would I even follow them? You follow most people, you cannot force people to go follow you everywhere. You have to show up where they're at. So when it comes to, okay, well, where do I show up? You have to pick one platform and go all in on it, right? One platform, at least to start, right? And the beauty of doing it that way is let's just fast forward and say you do really well there and you can automate your systems. You've gotten really good with it. So you've been able to buy some time back. Okay, now let's start on a second platform, and a bunch of people from that first platform are going to be there with you on that second platform already. Like that's just going to happen automatically, versus starting from scratch everywhere is so hard. But the beauty of this is it allows you to say no to those others so you can say yes fully to the one to start. And when you do that, this is what I like to call just-in-time learning, right? So let me know if all of you in the chat agree with this strategy. This is the way that I learn anything. This is the approach that I take so I can do more things, even though I'm only doing one thing at a time. I do what's called just-in-time learning. And just-in-time learning means only allowing yourself to consume information and learn about the thing that is next on your list, or the one thing that the one platform that you chose. And so this allows you to say no to those other things that may be out there, that may be great, that may be good for you, but just not exactly what you need right now. Now, the trouble with this strategy in just-in-time learning is the idea that you might be missing out on something, right? Like there's so much great content out there and great creators. It's like, how do I might want to read that later. I'm going to go read it now so I don't miss it. Well, here's what I do. I have a folder, an Evernote system that allows me to, if I come across anything on my social streams that I think would be useful for me, but it's just not useful for me right now, I put it into those folders, right? Just so I can get rid of the FOMO. Like I can go back to it when I want to, right? Because we all have FOMO, and that's why we do things that maybe we shouldn't do, because we're afraid we're not going to get that opportunity again. But having this folder system is great. Here's the secret though, or the truth. I don't ever go back to those folders. Like honestly, I never go back to them. It's just a way for me to get rid of the FOMO or the capture. And, you know what I mean? Like if you need to go back to them, great. But if, like in most cases, you're just going to keep going with the direction that you're going. So just-in-time learning is great. And so if I'm going to focus on Instagram, great. Let's even narrow it down even more. I'm going to focus on Instagram Reels and just learning about that. Okay, well, who should I follow? There's people out there like Brock Johnson, Chalene Johnson's son, who's crushing it with teaching people, or Kenya Kelly, another amazing creator helping with those short form videos, right? Like follow one person, learn from them, immerse yourself in their space, take their course, like learn all you can about that one thing and master it, right? And master it. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. And it's going to be like, oh, is this really what I want to dedicate myself to? Well, the truth is, if you don't dedicate yourself to anything, then you're never going to show up anywhere fully, and nobody's going to follow you. So that's what I recommend for that. And in terms of like, okay, which one do I select? It could be a combination of, well, where is your audience already? And what do you think you would be excited to wake up and do? Right. I think that's the way I love framing it, because there are going to be days where you're just not excited to continue to do the whatever you decided to do. But if you enjoy it enough, you're going to do it anyway. And so what's the one platform you can imagine that on a day where you don't really want to do anything, you would still do that thing anyway? Right. And that's where I would focus.
Yeah, I love that. And I think being able to kind of explore the different platforms you know, not every platform is the same. So it's kind of giving you the opportunity to really hone in on like what you're really good at and what you like and what lights you up. So
For sure.
that's really good advice. I love that.
Thank you.
I was getting a question, and I think this is all, like, I am always so curious to hear about this topic, about tools that you like to use for your business. Because I had there's someone who asked where you kept all of your information stored. So I was just curious really quickly if we could just quickly touch on some like tools that you like to use in your business and like what helps you stay like organized.
Yeah, so I used to be a tool hoarder, and I'd get like every tool under the sun because everybody said it was cool. But very similar to my previous message was pick the one or two tools that'll help you and just go all in on it. So there's two tools I use. One we all already use anyway. And I'll start with that one, and that's the calendar. My calendar is so important because it tells me when I should focus on certain things and when I should not focus on certain things.
Right.
So this all ties in together with the one thing, stop multitasking thing, which somebody said earlier in the chat. And so the calendar allows me to time block. And I don't go, okay, during this time, I'm going to do this thing on the to-do list. This time, I'm going to do this thing on the to-do list. I use time blocking as this strategy, which means, for example, and every day is different for me. This is the way productivity is like diet. Not every diet's the same for every person that works best for them. So you have to find the method that works for you. Let me just say that. But for me, Monday is my writing day, Tuesday is my recording day, Wednesday is my meeting day, and then Thursday and Friday are cleanup day. If I do everything right, Friday will be completely free. And so the beauty of this is on Tuesday, for example, which is a podcast recording day, I know that there's a 2-hour block of time for me to get just as much of that as I can get done. Yeah. So I can sometimes get, because I'm time blocking and I'm not just doing one episode 1 week, I'm batch processing. I can get 3 to 4 episodes done in one session because I have that much high level focus. I don't have anything else going on that day except podcasting. Right. And I make sure to honor that block of time, because the last thing you want to do is have that block of time, but then go, okay, there's a fire to put out here. And okay, well, maybe I can check my email here. And then you just kind of get distracted, right? So there will be fires, but in most cases, it's not going to be something that if you don't answer within an hour, is going to kill your entire business. Yeah. And what would kill my entire business is if I got overwhelmed and got unhealthy and just stopped producing. So in a way, I have to honor that time block and I have to be all in on that during that time. But then after that's done, I usually have myself a break. And I'm at a point now where I even schedule in family time, right? Like during these hours, this is my focus now. And a lot of people hear that and they go, wow, that's kind of not good that you have to schedule in your family time. And I actually take the opposite approach. That is a great thing because I can ensure that this is happening. I can ensure that nothing else will come in and creep in on that time because I honor my calendar in that way. So that's tool number one that we already have access to. I think it's just the approach you take to that calendar that's going to make the difference in terms of usefulness or not. Tool number two is Notion. And Notion is an amazingly customizable tool that is simple to use and has an ability to grow with you as you are expanding what it is that you do. And my team and I use Notion to organize a lot of our stuff. And that's where the files and the links to Google Docs and all those other things. I mean, I use Google Docs and Google Sheets and stuff to organize, but most things are sort of centralized in Notion. It's like the one spot where conversation is happening. It's the one idea. It's the one space where just kind of, if I'm having a writing day, if it's Monday, I go into Notion, I open up whatever it is that I'm writing, and it's already there. And usually it's also never a blank sheet either. When I'm going to write something, for example, ahead of that writing day, I will write bullet points or have some team members come in and write bullet points so that when I go and it's time to write, and that's my block of time to write, I'm never staring at a blank thing and going, okay, well, what should I write about or where am I going with this? I already have some head start. And so that's kind of how the workflow is in my business. And those are the two tools that I use.
That's amazing. And I really appreciate us going a little bit off topic, but I think that's always so valuable for everyone to hear. And I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, and I definitely love the calendar. Someone mentioned I love sticking to the calendar. I think that's so great. It's like you're committing to yourself that you're going to do this. Yeah. So I think that's lovely. So to get back on topic, I'm curious to know, because we were talking about, you know, audience building in 2022, which is crazy that we're already getting to that. This year has gone by so fast, but I'm curious, are you picking up on any maybe like trends or things that you hope to see more of in the new year as it relates to, you know, online businesses, building your audience, any of that?
Yeah, so there's a phrase that was coined by, I think, Nathan Barry at ConvertKit.
Yes.
And that phrase is work in public. And this idea that you can bring people in on the processes and how you are doing, like you don't have to wait till the thing is finished in order to share it. In fact, sometimes when you share the thing that you're working on, especially if it's a bigger project, if you share the origin of it, if you share during the building and the planning of it, if you share the other team members that are involved with it, if you share the struggles and the failures with it, and then you share the wins and the big things that are happening, people begin to start to feel like they're a part of that process with you. And so this showing off of the process and the progress is very similar to how back in the day when the Industrial Revolution was happening, and I know this from reading, obviously, I'm not that old, there were factories like sprouting up everywhere for the first time. And a lot of these factories during the Industrial Revolution were very secretive. They were very closed off. They just produced what they produced, and nobody would ever see or know about what was happening on the inside, until at some point somebody had this idea of opening up the factory doors and letting people in. And it became so popular for brand, so popular for the public, that they actually started having like weekend getaways to go inside these factories and see on the inside. I mean, when you walk into Krispy Kreme, what do you see? You see this glass window with the donuts like trekking along, and then the glaze coming over, and you see kids and adults both like pressed up against the glass and seeing these things made. And it just provides a different experience, right? Imagine if the donuts at Krispy Kreme just had the donuts at the counter and that's it.
Right. It wouldn't be as special. Yeah,
exactly. Seeing the entire process from start to finish, and the thing like even like, oh, look at that donut, it like fell over, it's on the floor, it's like, oh, that's like, it's just, it becomes more real. And the cool thing about sharing behind the scenes and sharing your work in process or in public is that it allows people to feel like they're involved with something that not everybody gets. It makes them feel like they're a part of something special, like a backstage pass, if you will. And so when you offer somebody that backstage pass, or that ability to see something on the inside the factory doors, oftentimes those people will now be equipped to share something that is special with others, because they have something that they can makes them look good, because they have, like, it's like if you ever come to California and you ever eat at In-N-Out with somebody who's a big In-N-Out fan, they're going to tell you about the secret menu. Like you will hear about the secret menu. Oh, you know about the secret menu, and they feel cool because they're sharing that secret thing with somebody, right? So if you can, on social media especially, which is very easy to do, just pop on a Instagram story and just start talking. Like I did this the other day. We just wrapped another course that we just filmed, and my videographer and I were here in the office, and I was just like, hey guys, we just finished, how many videos did we do? Like 60? Okay. Well, anyway, we just wrapped an entire course. Let me tell you about it. And it's just like real, right? It's just real in the moment. No thinking about, okay, what am I going to say? Just bring people in on the process with you. And I think that that's a great way to build audience, because it allows for people to connect. It allows people to be involved. And when people are involved, they're invested, which takes me to another thing that I'm seeing a lot more people do, which is some sort of engagement. We're seeing this even on platforms like YouTube. YouTube Live, for example, just announced and released their polling platform finally on that platform. But I mean, think about any webinar that you've gone to, any sort of training. Which ones are more exciting? The one where you're just sitting and listening to a lecture the whole time, or the ones where the person who's speaking is like, all right, chat, let me know which one of these 3 bullet points do you resonate with most? Number 1, number 2, number 3. Oh, wow, lots of number 1s, lots of number 2s. Oh, Jill, like you're number 3. Let me bring you on the camera and have you talk about that really quick. And then it just becomes this involved, sort of engaged, multi-connection community versus just like, you know, one person talking. And I think community and things like that are going to be the future of business, and having people feel like they're a part of something, and to a point where then that community can grow on its own from the inside. You know, if you get, like, any brand can do this. Any brand can have the ability to build fans, where fans will then connect with other fans. And it's like, if you, like, we're in the middle of baseball season right now, right? If you're at a baseball game and your home team hits a game-winning walk-off grand slam, everybody in the stadium who's wearing the same color hat is going to be high-fiving and hugging each other, make sure you're within, safe precautions with COVID, but you're, because you all enjoy the same thing. Your brand can provide that experience and facilitate those interactions. I mean, look at what we're doing right now.
Yeah,
we have,
exactly.
We are connecting, it's live, and people like gym leader Takashi and Steph and Woo Friends and Jake are here, and we're communicating. I mean, maybe we're not doing as good of a job of interacting, but we're teaching, but it's live and it's real and it's raw. And I think like some of the higher produced stuff now, like, doesn't matter as much. It almost seems fake in a way. Not that it always is fake, but it almost seems fake. I think a lot of us are, especially on social media, getting a little bit jaded from that perfect Instagram photo where, she's a mom and like, she's like, oh my gosh, hard day. And her house is like perfect. And you're like, that's not true.
Like, no.
Like, people want to see the real. And so when you bring the real and you open up your work to everybody, I think it makes people feel like they're a part of something, and people are looking for things to be a part of right now. I
completely agree. I actually experienced kind of the same kind of thing yesterday. I went to Later, which is a social media management tool. They had their annual conference, and it was so fun. There was like meditation sessions. There was a tab where people can network with each other. We all had to create a profile, and it just goes to show that like the connection aspect and everyone kind of banding together over something that they love, which in this case was learning about like social media strategies and all of that. It was amazing. So I think that's really important to note for sure.
Can we keep going with what's working and what we should do?
Yes,
because I have a lot of strong feelings about this next point. And this next point is the idea that we need to really put a line in the sand, or make our mark, or stand up and say something we believe in. I mean, now more than ever, I think we all know how important that is. But even in our businesses, sometimes we like to play it safe. Sometimes we don't say the hard thing because it might upset some people, right? I'm not saying we have to get political. I'm not saying we have to get religious or nothing like that. What I'm saying is, what does your brand stand for? What do you believe in? And making that known. And when you can really step forward and stake a claim, if you will, more people are going to come on your side, right? I think that if I think it was a Hamilton quote, if you don't have anything to stand for, what will you stand for? Something like that. I can't remember the Hamilton quote, but something about like, well, if you're not like going to be a part of this, or not actually step up and say what you believe in, then why would people stand with you on anything, right? So we at SPI are taking a big stance on audience building and audience growth, and very much now taking the position, even though we've always had this position, we never really like said it out loud or owned it, right? But this idea of, like, you have to build an audience first, right? Yes, you can build a business and then find an audience for that, but I much would rather have the Seth Godin approach. Seth Godin said, you have to find not customers for your products, but you want to find the products for your customers. Right. And so starting with the customers and then building the products for them, right? Or starting with the audience, like we talked about, and we went deep into that earlier, and then creating the content for them. But then if you don't take a stance, and if you don't say, like, this is what I believe in, then why would people continue to follow you? I think it's really important. This is why, again, I don't want to get political or nothing like that, but this is why a lot of really specifically, like, stake in the ground, this is my claim, political people have huge platforms, like huge audiences. And it's not just because it's politics, it's because they have a view that people can get behind or counter at the same time. Right. And I think a lot of us in the business world, we sometimes we just want to play it safe, right? I think we need to stand up for what we believe in. We need to make that known, and we need to stake a claim, and then people can join us or not. But they're more likely to join us if that's clear. Yeah, I love that. That's a really, really good point. Is there anything else that you've noticed that you wanted to bring up in terms of things, maybe some things, maybe some things that you want to see more of in the next new year? I want to see more podcast guesting and having that become a very big part of a person's strategy. In fact, I have some students who I was just like, okay, remember what I said, just-in-time learning, like just do the one thing. I told some of my students, just focus on getting on one podcast every week. Like, just have that be your focus. Whether it's published every week or an interview every week, just That's it. Just focus on that strategy. And their platforms are growing like that because they've been able to then, through that process, get better at pitching themselves, right? So that just becomes more efficient in and of itself. And then number two, their names are starting to get out there now, and they're starting to become known for the thing. And the more practice they have telling their story and teaching on these podcasts, the better it gets and the more clear the message and position gets. So I think that guest podcasting should be a primary strategy for somebody, for anybody, and maybe even take a 3-week or 3-month sort of chunk of next year and go, okay, this is going to be my guest podcasting month or months. And we're just going to see what happens, and let's just focus all in on that. And today, I think, who is it? I think Newsworthy Pod. What's up, Newsworthy? Good to see you here. I think that, today is International Podcast Day. So that is, yep. A really cool coincidence as we talk about this. But it's also not a coincidence because podcasting continues to grow. It continues to be an amazing way to grow an audience if you have a podcast. But if you can hone in on what your superpower is, and then bring that to another audience and another podcaster, that's how all parties can be happy. We don't want you to approach another podcaster and go, hey, I'd love to be on your show and here's why. You want to go, hey, I noticed that your show doesn't really talk a lot about this, but this is my specialty. I'd love to bring this to your audience for you. Take a serve first approach to even things like guest podcasting, and you're going to see it really, really pay off, especially when you consider the fact that people are listening to podcasts much longer than they're watching video and reading blog posts. And not only are you on a platform where people can hear you, but you're also getting the endorsement from the host that has already spent all that time building that trust and reputation. So start with the people you already know if they have podcasts, or if you don't know anybody who has a podcast, maybe you know somebody who's been a guest on another podcast, and you can see if you can make your way into some episodes from there.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's gold advice. Yeah, Isabel, always sharing gold. Pat, you're the best. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, that was amazing. And before we, we're getting towards the end here, but if anyone has any questions, please drop them in the comments. But Pat, I wanted to talk about something that you have coming up, which is your summit. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. And Teachable is a partner with us on this, as so many other people are, and there's some amazing speakers. We have our first ever virtual summit. It's called Audience Driven, wouldn't you know? And as we take this stance in this space, we are going to start off with a bang. And we're starting off with this free conference. You can find it at audience-driven.co. And what's really amazing about this is we brought in all the best speakers that we could find to teach about what's working right now and what will work in 2022 with audience building. Everybody from Gina Kelly is going to be speaking on short form video. Ali Abdal Tube, he is just an incredible YouTube creator with 2 million subscribers, and he's going to teach us a little bit about video, to everything from email marketing to community building, cohort-based courses, online courses. Audience building and audience monetization is really what it's about. So audience-driven.co. It's free to register. You get the replays if you sign up, and some special bonuses too. And we'd love for you to check it out. And just thank you again to Teachable for helping support us and allowing me to share that a little bit. Audience-driven.co.
Perfect. Yes, I pinned the link in the comments.
Awesome.
So definitely, I'm excited to register for sure. It's going to be great. That's awesome, Pat. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
Before we hop off today, where can people continue to keep in touch with you after this is over?
Sure. So obviously we're here on Instagram. You can connect with me on Instagram, of course, at Pat Flynn. You can also check out smartpassiveincome.com, where we have a lot of our trainings and education on helping you build and scale and grow your businesses in an authentic manner. And then you can find me on YouTube as well, Pat Flynn. I've been publishing a lot of videos there too. So I appreciate it. Oh, James Clear is going to be speaking there as well, the author of Atomic Habits. So
amazing.
A lot of fun people, a lot of great advice, very tangible, specific, strategic advice to help you grow your audiences. So that's where you can find me, and I look forward to seeing you at audience-driven.co. That's
amazing. And really quickly, what are the dates of the summit and where will it be?
Sure. October 12 and 13, and we're hosting it on our own platform with partnership with Hey Summit. And so or October 12 and 13, and you can sign up and you can go and attend all the things, or you can just pick and choose from the ones that you want. Again, audience-driven.co, and then we'll direct you from there.
Perfect. Pat, thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you so much for all your amazing advice. I think everyone here got a lot of value today, and it will be saved, no worries. So Pat, thank you so much, and I hope you and everyone else has a great day.
Thank you. Hope you too.
Thank
Bye.
you.